Well, so you talked about the fact how much you love open development and how that secrecy is annoying. So is an open source hardware architecture a differentiator here? I mean, RISC-V has come along quite nicely in the last few years. Is that an improvement? Will that be better with RISC-V?
My fear is that RISC-V will do all the same mistakes that everybody else did before them. I mean, we saw this very much. One of the frustrations when ARM became a server platform and became much more relevant for that side is they redid all the mistakes that I had already seen a decade or two earlier on x86, and they fixed them more quickly because by now people have learned something, but I'm just looking forward to when RISC-V becomes more of a big, widely deployed platform. They'll have all the same issues we had on the ARM side and that x86 had before them, and it will take a few generations for them to say, oh, we didn't think about that, because they have new people involved.
But that's the question. And obviously, hardware is very different from software because of the lead times to make changes. Yep. But isn't an open source architecture kind of an opportunity for the software guys to come in early and say, oh, by the way, over here, what you're doing here, let's not do this because we've tried this and we know it doesn't work? Or is it just that no one listens to us software people?
I think the issue is that even when you do the hardware design in a more open manner, hardware people are different enough from software people. There's a fairly big gulf between the Verilog and even the kernel, much less like higher up the stack where you are working with so far away from the hardware that you really have no idea how the hardware works. So it's really hard to kind of work across this very wide gulf of things. And I suspect the hardware designers, some of them have, I mean, there is some overlap, but they will learn by doing mistakes, all the same mistakes that have been done before.
That seems so inefficient. I mean, you obviously have worked at a CPU company before. We've worked on that side. I'm kind of frustrated that we don't have a way to help the RISC-V people to do better, because it's kind of cool to see an open source architecture, and maybe we can show that there's more to it.
Well, I mean, to some degree, doing hardware now, I think, is easier. You see it on the ARM infrastructure side, how it took ARM first on the 32-bit side and then now on the 64-bit side. It took a few decades to really get to the point where ARM and x86 are competing on a fairly equal ground, because there was all this software that was fairly PC-centric. Yeah. And that has passed. And that will make it easier for new architectures like RISC-V to then come in. But at the same time, when you do something new, for whatever reason, whether it's because you want to have an open architecture or because you come up with a new idea and you go, nobody else has tried this, I will do that. Most of the time you will make mistakes. Yeah. I mean, most of them will fail completely without ever anybody hearing about them, but even the successful ones take a stumble or two.
But I mean, what you said is true. 10 years ago, moving away from x86 to a different platform was still incredibly hard. Today, most people don't even know whether you're running on a Graviton or an Ampere or an AMD or an Intel chip. It's in the cloud, it all looks exactly the same. You have the same software stack, just the price point is different.
Well, I mean, that was one of the promises of open source, and people were saying that this was true 10 years ago, and it wasn't true 10 years ago, but it's certainly reaching that point now.
It certainly is today, yeah. But let's switch